Okay. Oh, I know what I'm. Okay. I'm going to block parents here. So just a way to get into this, I want to kind of backtrack just a little bit because I think it'll help us, and then we're gonna get all of chapter 36 and maybe a little more done today. I like what Dr. Fredheim said here. God places the relationship with Israel on a new footing. It is now grounded on an event that is profoundly full of wonder, as what God has done in and to Egypt, undeserved divine forgiveness to an apostate people. I think that's helpful. I put up this picture I took of Moses in Rome when we were there with our trip. What has he got on his head? Horns. Horns. And of course, when you're there, the first thing they'll tell you, those are not horns. They're rays of light. You know how his face shone? This is the way it's reflected. But in Hebrew, but they don't look like rays of light, do they? Now, and so that's what we were told when we were there. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. I can go with that. But the word in Hebrew for horns and light is like the same. And so it can be like horns, but or shining forth, or coming forth of your face, you know, like a horn. So anyway, so there was a connection there that we missed going back a ways, and I wanted to just throw that up there. Andrew?
Yeah, before we get to the material, I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I wanted to say something about the comment about we are a yes church. I think that's beautiful, but I've been thinking about the interrelationship between kindness and strength. And I think that proper kindness, kindness that I would consider proper, is an occasion where it's within your rights and within your ability to say no, and you can choose to say yes. And so if someone is compelled to make some choice on someone's behalf and they cave because that isn't legit kindness, in my opinion.
I'll go with that. All right, thank you. Let's see. I want to go to the actual scripture. So we got that on board. We'll come back to Dr. Fredheim in a minute here. Let's get some reading going, and we'll get going. So we're just a little bit before chapter 36, and Moses said to the people of Israel, "See, the Lord has called by name Bezalel, the son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. And he has filled him with the Spirit of God, with skill, with intelligence, with knowledge, and with all craftsmanship, to devise artistic designs." An architect. "To work in gold and silver and bronze, and cutting stones for setting, and in carving wood for work in the very skilled craft, in every skilled craft. And he has inspired him to teach, both him and Oholiab, the son of Ashishmach, of the tribe of Dan. He has filled them with skill to do every sort of work done by an engraver, or by a designer, or by an embroiderer in blue and in purple. Purple is very expensive, blue as well. And scarlet yarns, and fine twined linen, or by a weaver, by any sort of workman or skilled designer." Let's keep going. "Bezalel and Oholiab, or probably, and every craftsman in whom the Lord has put skill and intelligence to know how to do any work in the construction of the sanctuary, shall work in accordance with all that the Lord has commanded." Now, what do we get from all of this?
God recognizes talents, and God has given the certain people talents.
I think the second one is right on. God gives. So what do you say to people who say, hey, what I have is mine. I worked for it. I did it. Well, at a certain level, we can say, well, yes, you did, but where did your skill come from?
God.
And where did your motivation come from? And this type of thing. And so I think that's something I get from this, that God, like Paul says, God's given everyone gifts for the building up of the body of Christ. And they're all different and they all contribute in some way. Now, this is obviously speaking about the building and creation of the tabernacle, but everybody used their skill to build up this place that God had, commanded to be made. And I think that's really interesting. That Lord, I like the way the English translates the Hebrew here, whom the Lord has put skill and intelligence. The Lord put the skill and intelligence. It comes from God. Yes.
Don't you think it's appropriate that at the time we're celebrating the anniversary of this congregation and the glory of having this place, that God put within the mind of various persons in the congregation to secure the land? And then I hear about the painting parties and all the things that the people of God here at Silverdale Lutheran did to make a glorious place to worship God.
Amen. Perfect. Yeah, well said, well said. And perfect timing. Yeah, I love seeing all those pictures that we're showing of people, painting and constructing and plastering and building, and a lot of you were a part of it. So yes, both the vision and then the skill and the effort to create this amazing campus.
Then we had the second vision with the gathering place.
And then the gathering place came right along, which we're gonna have all paid off in 2 more months.
Isn't that wonderful?
It will 45,000 a year that we will not be having. Yes.
Well, I don't know if you read it in the version or not, but it talks about in verse 34, he gave them the ability to teach others. So he not only gave them the ability to do things, but to teach others.
Oh, that is awesome, Gloria. Yeah. And that's it. He has inspired him to teach, both him and Oholiab, the son of Ishmael, the tribe of Dan, and filled them with skill. So that's perfect. And that's a principle that I fear I have not emphasized enough. When I think of the Bob Harpers and the Don Buttons and yeah, I mean, and then lots of gals too. We really should be having an apprentice for everything you do in church, so that when you're not doing it anymore, someone else knows how to do it. And so I love that. Not just teaching scripture, but also teaching skills.
Yeah.
Like, how do you usher, or how do you take care of the cemetery, or how do you, mow just the average basic stuff, So yeah, please, Russ.
Do you think those guys learned those skills in Egypt?
Yeah, where did they learn those? It's a great question.
I don't.
They would have had to, I guess, right? They would have had to.
And you wonder how long or at what point the Spirit of God filled them to be able to do this. Was it earlier in life so that they were just a skill magnet?
Yeah.
Or was it at that point in time? And I can imagine that would just blow your mind if you were the recipient of something like that.
Yeah. Because it's always the case where it's a combination of both hard work and gift, I think, I mean, it's like this weird, I don't want to call it magic, but, like when people learn to play an instrument, they have to sit down in front of a piano before they know. And then some people just go to town.
And for some people, it's, I recognize this in my son is that music is a language. And when he plays, it's like he's communicating a language.
Yes.
And he sees colors.
Yeah.
And various other things, which And I'm looking at these people here and thinking, wow, you know, it's, most of us can't even comprehend what it would be like to be
Yeah.
viewed with that kind of ability.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's, was it Frederick Buechner? I know Marietta used to love this quote, where your passion meets the world's greatest need, your vocation is when your passion meets the world's need, or, and I think you could maybe expand that to say where, you know, what you love, you know,
Translates.
yeah, yeah.
Necessity is a mother of invention.
And then there's necessity.
Yeah.
They needed to learn these things and know these things.
Yeah.
So I want to get back to Ross's question though, because he might have been wondering, how do these people get to know all this? Not that that's Ross's motivation, but, so one of the things that, a lot of Old Testament scholars are going to say about Exodus is that even though it's telling the story of the Exodus, you know, way back in the, whatever that's 1200 to 1400 BC, even though this is what's being talked about, that we really need to have the Babylonian exile in mind that happened, you know, 800 years later, and how important this material would be to them. So let me remind you of what the exile was. So in 582 or something BC, the Babylonians came in, and after the Assyrians, about 150 some years before, had destroyed the northern kingdom and the northern tribe, and you know, this is where the, you know, you get the lost tribes of Israel. Well, that the 10 tribes of the north was disappeared. I had someone recently ask me, maybe I already said this a few weeks ago, but you know, what are people in Israel today? Do they claim to be part of these other 10 tribes? And the answer, I think, would be no, because those people were kind of lost and just, but Jews comes from the term Judea. So that's where it comes from. So these are people of the tribe of Judah, which is the only one that was left. Now, there may be some people in Israel that say, well, my ancestry is here, and I don't, that's really a tangent that I just got off on. The point here is that the southern kingdom gets wiped out by the Babylonians in 580 after they survived the Assyrian onslaught. And they are in exile for 50 years. Cyrus of Persia comes along and says, you know, beats up the Babylonians, and his policy is let these people go back to their land. And so he lets them go back. Now, these are people that are have no temple, no, you know, religious organization as such left. And they've got to rebuild. And so a lot of scholars feel like this is where this material is brought together. Now, this is just a guess. I mean, truthfully. But regardless, you can see how important this would be to people who had no temple to say, we're going back and we're going to reset up the temple, even though it's a tabernacle right now. But all of this will become the temple. And especially if it comes from more of the priestly influence and the priestly convictions. And, you know, this is stuff that priests care about, you know, I mean, what jewel goes here and like, you know, I mean, so, but it's very pastoral in the sense that, hey, just like God didn't abandon us before, and he set up a tabernacle to dwell with us. I mean, we were apostate. We were all already, you know, are not having faith and we're not doing this. So, but God still says, I'm going to stick with you and I'm going to make a tabernacle. So I'm in your presence. Think about what that would mean to people who were coming back with nothing. And that promise was gonna be there. I think I saw Sharon and then Andrew again.
Well, DNA strands run strong. And they've been able to go and find DNA in people and go way, 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 way back. And the Jews have kept themselves, quote, intact. Very much so as a society. When they go places, they stick together and they remember. And so they had scriptures way back when that went solid into their mind, and they were such a close-knit group. And geographically, they didn't have like the whole continent going and that kind of thing. Like when we showed up here, we had a whole continent to try and work with. But they maintain that memory verbally as well and pass it on. And it goes right down through the strains.
They have continued to keep their traditions and hold together as a people for sure, without a doubt. Andrew, you got a quick one? Yeah.
Yeah, as you were saying, how the tabernacle becomes the temple. We could look retrospectively as the tabernacle, as it's discussed here, as a portable temple.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so let's keep getting into that. Bill, yeah.
The city that I grew up in, Cumberland, Maryland, had a very strong, important Jewish group that lived there.
Yeah.
And one of the things our church did when we were growing up is they would take us to various different churches. Like we went to the Stations of the Cross, the Catholic Church. We would go to the Baptist Church. We also spent a whole morning down with the Jewish synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we had good friends that were there.
Right.
One of my best friends, we both were Lionel trained with the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And I just really enjoyed that whole Saturday morning down the synagogue.
Cool. That's something I wish we could do. We should do.
And
we should do it here.
The population there was very, very well thought of.
Yeah.
A lot of them were merchants that had some of the bigger, better stores in town.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody really liked them all.
And where was this?
Cumberland, Maryland. It's up in the western panhandle of Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go across the river, you're in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. My family was living across the river in West Virginia, but we had to go over to Maryland so I could be born in the hospital.
Yeah, cool. So just a quick, since I semi brought it up, although it was a tangent, I didn't mean to, but Judaism, if you were to have a rabbi talk to you about it, they would say it's a religion, it's a culture, and it's a race.
Yeah.
And that's why it's kind of unique. Christianity is a religion. African, European, whatever, you know, there's no identification of a certain race with Christianity. There is kind of in Judaism. Some people will say that with Islam, but that's not really true because Islam is gone to all different sections. So that's why it's a little bit not confusing, but interesting because it's also a culture. There are a lot of Jewish people who it's my culture, it's my upbringing, but I don't really practice my religion. I don't, I'm not that, but my identity is one. So when you talk to a rabbi, you see that, well, Judaism is multifaceted in that way. It certainly is a religion in the respect that we talk about religions, but it's also, and so that's what's unique about it. And maybe that's why it gets under the ardor of so many people. Yeah.
I've always been confused by that. I've always wondered why they're not called Israelites.
Right.
And so I guess the ethnicity and the religion is combined.
It is combined. Although, you can become a Jew, you can convert and become, so that's where it's a religion, but you don't have the, I think to like go back to Israel, like if my great grandmother was Jewish, I think I could go move to Israel right now.
But what I'm saying is, does that take away my ethnicity? That I'm English or Irish or whatever? That's
Yeah,
confusing.
that is confusing. That is confusing.
So I don't get it.
Yeah,
But-
well, let me just, I can't fix all of the not getting it. Because we need to have a good rabbi, either a reformed or conservative rabbi, come and talk to us about this, but, my daughter, anyway, has taken classes on this, so I'll ask her about it, but it's important to note that Jewish people are from the tribe of Judah.
Yeah,
That's why they're not called Israelites, because Israelites included all 12 tribes. Now, they might be referred to as Israel, but Judah's a subset
yeah.
of Israel. And so once the nation is wiped out, there's no longer
I do that.
a nation of Judah or a nation of Israel. Now you've got a people who are of the tribe of Judah, and they're taken off in exile. They come back, they resettle and recreate the nation. And so that's where the term Jews comes from. So, but I don't want to spend too much time on this subject. Andrew, yeah.
I'd say between culturally, religiously, and genetically, you could think of Jew as a Venn diagram where there's 3 intersecting circles, and the center is a massive, there's a massive intersection.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's good.
So we haven't yet come to all the festivals.
Right.
And that's one of the things that they remember, like Rosh Hashanah was yesterday.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
so I have a close Jewish friend and she'll be celebrating that.
absolutely. So
And,
the Jewish folks who practice, and that's a lot, they still do their festivals, and the Sabbath is, that's the thing that's always delineated them from, the rest of, and kept their identity rooted, so. Okay, did I miss one? Oh.
I just sneezed.
Oh, you just sneezed, okay. I heard somebody, don't move out there. All right, very good. Well, let's keep going then, because there's a lot of other great points that we can make from this. And Moses called Bezalel and Oholiab, and every craftsman in whose mind the Lord had put skill, everyone whose heart stirred him to come to do the work. Okay, so look where this is coming from. Internal. God's promise happens, then people are responding, their hearts are stirred, they're motivated. Ross pointed out the term free will offering last week. That's a term to mean that they weren't forced to do it with threats or rewards even. And so I think that motivation is clearly something that's important to the author of this part of Exodus, that, that's where it's coming from. And they received from Moses all the contribution that the people of Israel had brought for doing the work of the sanctuary. They obviously plundered Egypt before they left. They still kept, and that they were told to do so, like Egypt was like, here, take all this and get out of here. They still kept bringing him free will offerings every morning, so that all the craftsmen who were doing every sort of task of the sanctuary came from the task that he was doing, and said to Moses, the people bring much more than enough for doing the work that the Lord has commanded us to do. So Moses gave command, and word was proclaimed throughout the camp. Let no man or woman do anything more for the contribution of the sanctuary. Wow. When you've got when you've got that kind of motivation, you have to say, stop giving. Is this verse ever quoted in a stewardship campaign?
Hasn't happened here yet.
So the people were restrained from bringing, for the material they had was sufficient to do all the work and more. And all the craftsmen among the workmen made the tabernacle with 10 curtains. They were made of fine twined linen and blue and purple and scarlet yarns, with cherubims skillfully worked. Cherubim are those
Angel on the other side of
angels, creatures. And the length of each curtain was 28 cubits, and the breadth of each curtain 4 cubits. So I think a cubit is like what, this to here supposedly? I think that's a cubit. We could look it up if you want, but let's see, cubits, I gotta know. A cubit was about 18
I was a
inches.
carpenter, so I know cubit's 18 inches.
What's that?
A cubit is 18 inches.
There it is.
Because I was a carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter Doug, because Doug is a carpenter, so you know, is it a myth that everybody's here to hear is the same on everybody?
No, it is a myth.
That is a myth, okay.
Yeah, it took a standard sometime in the, I don't know, 16th century or something.
Okay, yeah, I don't know where, that was floating around in the back of my head somewhere.
I mean, you take somebody who's 7 feet tall, that's gonna be.
They're gonna have a much bigger cubit.
Paying off the $45,000, do we need to stop giving?
Did you guys hear? She said, when we pay off the 45,000 on the mortgage, does that mean we can cut our giving back?
No. I mean, because you don't want too much.
I don't want to.
That's true.
We are a non-profit organization.
Yeah, where would you put all that money anyway?
Yeah.
We'll get a new intern.
Yeah, we could do lots of good ministry with that, believe me. We won't let it sit in the bank.
Where did the word foot come from?
What's that?
Foot.
Foot.
Where did that come from?
Yeah. Yes, so, by the way, there was another thought that Linda made me think of when she said that. Oh, well, given we're 10,000 behind right now, yeah, keep it.
I heard that Costco's selling gold.
Yeah, there we go. All right. So in the curtains of saying he coupled 5 curtains to one another, and the other 5 curtains he coupled to one another. He made loops of blue on the edge of the outermost curtain of the first set. Likewise, he made them on the edge of the outermost curtain of the second set. He made 50 loops on the one curtain, and he made 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that was in the second set. The loops were opposite one another, and he made 50 clasps of gold and coupled the curtains one to the other with clasps, so that the tabernacle was a single whole.
We have part of the picture.
They didn't have pictures back then. What? I bet you somebody has made a picture. I bet you I could forget it. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, I saw my daughter yesterday, but sometimes it has pictures,
Yeah. Probably we have this, but what we're hearing is the blueprints, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they didn't have blueprints, I don't think back then, but they have the descriptions. Let's see here.
I don't see it as my fault. It's just a big right.
You do recall that tabernacle means tent or media. Let's see what I got here. Okay, so here's one depiction of the tabernacle that they are taking from the descriptions. And this is the covering, the tent that I think you're hearing about with the different colors. And the entrance with the fence around and with the different altars and tables and whatnot. So the pillar of smoke, maybe, which we'll hear about in just a minute. So maybe that's helpful, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. What we got here?
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a
I wonder if they had a hole at the top of it to smoke it up. Otherwise, they would fill up with.
right. Let's see, what do we got here? This might be fun.
There you go. Yeah.
Animated tour.
That's right.
And just imagine them carrying, you know, taking all this down and carrying it through the.
All right, here we go.
And I will dwell in the midst of them, according to all that I show you, the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its equipment, and so you will do. This portable temple was built in the wilderness by the Israelites, circa 1450 BC, after they were freed from Egyptian slavery. Moses was given specific instructions regarding the construction of the tabernacle in Exodus 26. The tent itself sat within a curtained enclosure that was supported by pillars. This courtyard was about a quarter of the size of an American football field. Several slaughtering tables stood within the court of the tabernacle, along with the bronze laver and the bronze altar. The tabernacle itself was a rectangular shaped structure. Its roof consisted of multiple layers of animal skins and linens. An outer covering of tachash skin, which may have been porpoise, beaver, or a type of leather. A covering of ram skin dyed red. A curtain of goat's hair. And finally, a curtain of fine linen. The interior of the tabernacle was divided into two sections that housed a number of sacred objects. The first section, the holy place, contained the table of showbread, the lampstand, and the altar of incense. Beyond a veil lay the Holy of Holies, or the most holy place, which housed the Ark of the Covenant. The tabernacle was the first temple dedicated to God and the first resting place of the Ark of the Covenant. It served as a place of worship and sacrifices during the Israelites' 40 years in the desert and their subsequent conquest of the land of Canaan. This transportable house of worship was eventually replaced by a more permanent structure, King Solomon's Temple.
There we go. You asked for it, you got it.
That was very good. Picture.
Yeah. So,
They have a different idea of portable.
oh, yeah, that's a move, big deal. I'm sorry, did you guys see that at home? If you didn't, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I saw it at home. I was thinking that the area from the communion rail forward was sort of the holy of holy places. And that I don't have no idea why I thought that, but I've always thought that as a child because you never entered into that without bowing. And
yes.
I just always had that in my mind.
No, that's good, Margot. We have invested special sacredness in that area of the sanctuary, I think. Historically, anyway. It's maybe less so now, but I remember growing up as a kid, and you know, you didn't go past the altar rail unless you were doing the communion and assisting or the pastor, you know, it was, and that kind of made that a special place for us. And you know, so I think for us, a little different would be that what makes it special is what happens there, and where the bread and wine are, you know, and the words of Christ are put together, makes that, you know, that's what makes it special. It's not in and of itself special. We can do communion out at the lake if we wanted, but we just like we've talked about in weeks prior, we invest in a space, in a building, in a space, and then even in a space. So yeah, I think, Margot, connecting that, we have a little of that, don't we? We have a holy space building, and then a still sacred space, and then an even more sacred space. And for us as Lutherans, our big sacred space up there is the pulpit. So, and you'll notice that in the change from the Reformation 500 years ago is what used to be the chancel, we have the chancel's the altar area. Right. Well, you go to these big cathedrals and the chancel's bigger than, and then you have these little places for people to sit. So what does that tell you about what was thought to be the important? Well, what's important is that the priests are doing up there. Yeah. You know, so our theology definitely shapes our space. Paul and Andrew, yeah.
when you were growing up, and some of you were growing up in a Lutheran church, did they have the elements in a little tent-like thing? At my church, they did, and they would remove that so that the elements were now available. And I was wondering if that was I never thought of it before.
Like the curtain, they actually call it the curtain.
Oh,
they do. It's more probably, Paul, it would depend on your Lutheran congregation on how high church versus low church it was. In the East Coast, and when I was taught, even in the West Coast at Pacific Lutheran, you had the veil and you had the curtain that, you know, and it was put together and covered. And then, you know, when you prepared the table, you took it off a certain way and everything like that. That's why I say we're kind of a medium church here. We cover, we have, you know, but it's not as, I went to an East Coast church, Lutheran church in New York a while back when I was visiting there. You know, I was like, man, if I was pastor here, I'd have to do some heavy duty practice. You know, he did everything, you know, very orderly, and they had the veil and the curtain over the elements and everything. So I would think it must.
Well, the Catholics do it. So,
and the Roman Catholic Church still does it that way.
is that why they put the napkin over the bread?
Yes, that's a part of it, yeah.
And not for sanitary.
Just to kind of, it's not really sanitary, no.
Yeah.
Although maybe originally, actually, ironically, in the big cathedrals, what do you have flying around everywhere?
Bugs.
Birds, bats. Yeah, there's all kinds of birds in the big cathedrals. So offensive. And so one of the reasons they covered is a sanitary thing. So anyway, all right, excellent. Thank you, Margot. Well, that was a great, thank you for that request, and thank you, Logos, for being such a great, powerful program here. Although, let's see, let's go back to the Bible. All right. So now we're getting a vision of what it looks like. He also made curtains of goat's hair for 10. I'll just read through this so we get this out there. Did I already do this though? No. Okay. How would you know? All sounds the same to this non-carpenter. He also made curtains of goat's hair for a tent over the tabernacle. He made 11 curtains. The 11th of each curtain was 30 cubits, and the breadth of each curtain 4 cubits. The 11 curtains were the same size. He coupled 5 curtains by themselves and 6 curtains by themselves, and he made 50 loops on the edge of the outermost curtain of the one set. And he made 50 clasps of bronze. To couple the tent together that it might be a single hole. And he made for the tent a covering of tanned ram skins and goat skins. So just like our little illustration showed us. Then he made the upright frames for the tabernacle of acacia wood. 10 cubits was the length of the frame, and 1.5 cubits the breadth of each frame. Each frame had 2 tenons for fitting together. He did this for all the frames of the tabernacle. And the frames for the tabernacle he made thus: 20 frames for the south side, and he made 40 bases of silver under the 20 frames, 2 bases under the frame of the tenons, and 2 bases under the next frame for its 2 tenons. Doug knows what a tenon is. Isn't it like when you make those really cool tenons when you're joining wood together?
Yeah.
Anyway, for the second side of the tabernacle on the north side, he made 20 frames. And there are 40 bases of silver, 2 bases under the frame and 2 bases under the next. So we're getting all of these great blueprint instructions.
Well, we need more details.
We need more details. Yeah, Gloria.
Well, I was just wondering, in verse 19, it says, then they made for the tent a covering of ram skins dyed red, and over that a covering of hides of sea cows. What are sea cows?
Walrus.
Where did they come from? They're in the desert.
Yeah. Well, mine says
Porpoise. Oh.
Got bad.
Got badgers. Got badgers over here.
He's been.
So it's anybody's guess. Andrew,
Yeah, just a bit ago, I read ahead to where we approached 31 and 34. And that is, I noticed from the depiction that it looked like there were gold columns at the entryway. And you'll notice similar structure in Roman temples and stuff like that. But here we are, and it describes why it's gold at 34. We see the last word is gold there, and that's what they cover the acacia.
and made their rings of gold for holders for the bars and overlaid the bars with gold.
Yeah, those are the columns.
Yeah, okay. See, I was wondering when that was gonna come up, because that was really striking in that depiction, that these columns were all made of gold. Please.
Well, I'm thinking of all the textures they have all the linens and all of these precious things. And now we have the hides of animals, and that must have been for keeping the top rainproof, or it's going to be out in the elements.
I'm thinking that that would be it. Yeah, it would be functional as well as, yeah.
Because there's such a contrast between the animal things and the goat hair and all that kind of thing, and the details of the intricacies of what's inside.
Yeah, yeah. It's something. All right, let's just keep rolling. We'll get there. We will get to the end of this. He made bars of acacia wood, 5 for the frames, because we're going to talk, well, after we finish this section, we'll stop and talk about the significance of tabernacle, just in general, which I'm much more capable than. The bars he made of acacia wood, 5 for the frames of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the frames of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the frames of the tabernacle at the rear east-westward. And he made the middle bar to run from end to end, halfway up the frames, and he overlaid the frames with gold, and made their rings of gold for holders for the bars, and overlaid the bars with gold. He made the veil of blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen with cherubim skillfully worked into it. He made it. And for it, he made 4 pillars of acacia and overlaid them with gold. Their hooks were of gold, and he cast for them 4 bases of silver. He also made a screen for the entrance of the tent of blue and purple and scarlet yarns and fine twined linen embroidered with needlework. And its 5 pillars with their hooks, he overlaid their capitals, and their fillets were of gold, but their 5 bases were of bronze.
They had to have brought a lot of gold.
That is a lot of gold.
And overlaid
Melt it down,
that's solid gold.
Yes, right. The portability, as Ross rightly said, was a relative term. It was a permanently portable thing.
They probably rented a V-Haul.
Not a U-Haul. Oh, Ross. Okay.
This is a huge amount of material to put up and take down. So you would think that every time they stopped just for the night, they were going to put this back up, but just when they were going to stop for a lengthy period of time on the way where they were eventually doing the whole thing. But
did they do a lot of movement like that?
So, I'll go to the end of the book. So you know. Yeah, you can't forget the priest's garment.
They would have had to kept on the move up a lot because they had all those animals to graze.
Yeah. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting. So after they finished this stuff, this is 40 verse 34.
Yeah.
And we could just finish and skip over all that. We want to dial into each of the big parts of the tabernacle next week. That's probably what we'll do next week. And then we might be close to being finished. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter the tent of meeting because the cloud settled on it. And the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. So once they got it created, now God brings his glory. Andrew?
when we consider how long, the length of time they wandered the desert, we should take into account the cost of breaking down camp and setting back up.
Sure. And this is what we're gonna get to. Throughout all their journeys, whenever the cloud was taken up from over the tabernacle, the people of Israel would set out. So God told them, it's time to move. How often that was, I'm not sure we're told. I wonder if the people, you know, when they got up and they saw that the cloud had departed, were like, oh no. I was hoping to go fishing today. But if or hunting or something. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not set out till the day that it was taken up. So they stayed there until it was taken. For the cloud of the Lord was on the tabernacle by day, and fire was in it by night, and the sight of the house of Israel throughout all its journey. In the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. So the answer to that question obviously comes at the very end. You know, as far as how often.
You don't know how often.
We don't know. No. But when you get to Numbers, so Leviticus is now kind of the telling of the law, which I don't think we're going to go into. And we've read Numbers a couple of years ago, which means in Hebrew wanderings. So the Numbers dials into, you know, all the happenings in the wilderness.
Has it always been kind of like this for them now as they travel? Actually, the Lord would first, you know, the cloud would come down and they'd stay, and then the cloud would go up and they so. I mean, it's kind of been like that all along since they left Egypt, hasn't it?
I believe so. I believe so. But now the cloud is localized, and that's what I want to talk about.
Okay.
Thank you, Gloria. I want to put up some stuff from Fretheim here. Share screen right here.
So the cloud would be different than fog.
Be different than fog?
Yeah.
I would think so, yeah. But maybe not that. Fog is kind of a cloud that's on the ground, right?
Yeah.
So this is the promise that we heard back in 29. I will dwell among the people of Israel and will be their God, and they shall know that I am the Lord their God, who brought them out of the land of Egypt, that I might dwell among them. I am the Lord their God. Okay, so that was the promise. Even though they had not been faithful, they had not believed, God says, I'm going to still dwell with them. And so, God's grace and mercy, let's see, let me get this out of the way. We'll have to just cover up Dr. Fretheim. God's grace and mercy shown to an apostate will make it possible to pick up the narrative where it was earlier interrupted. The construction of the tabernacle can now begin at once. God's promise to dwell among the people remains intact. So that's why I had you read that one. So, you know, his promise is still there. The image presented is thus not a static picture of preparation for the coming. Let me get this out of the way. Oh, I didn't cut that one off. Sorry, guys at home, I gotta make you disappear for a minute. Coming of God to dwell in their midst. The community is in Advent mode. I thought this was interesting that so in this time of preparing the tabernacle, God is still present, but you know, there's a time of preparation for God coming into their midst. That's what this is, isn't it? I mean, they're going to build all this stuff. They're going to do all these things. Did you know Advent is in the Old Testament? No. Well, now you do. I mean, that's what Advent has become for us, is that we don't pretend that Christ hasn't come, you know, as if he hasn't, but we find power. And you know, it's cool to have a season where we prepare ourselves for Christmas and for the promise. the incarnation coming among us. Now, more recently, Advent has become a season where we talk about Jesus's return. That wasn't really the focus of Advent going back. It was about having a time of preparation for God dwelling in our midst. So now we talk a lot about, in the first few Sundays of Advent, when Jesus making mention of that. That's interesting that as they're building the tabernacle, they're in Advent mode. It's not that the people's preparedness causes God to dwell among them. That's true for us too. However, God's dwelling in their midst is a matter of divine initiative and promise. So God says, I'm going to dwell in your midst. I'm going to promise. But yet he gives the folks stuff to do to prepare themselves for God's coming. I've had a lot of people ask me, what's the right preparation to receive the Lord's Supper on Sundays? Well, of course, the Lutheran answer and Luther's answer was not all this penance and all this other stuff and fasting and doing all these things. Although that's fine if you want to do all that. But, you know, clearly the right preparation is, do you believe it? But we're tangible human beings. So what we need to do some stuff sometimes that helps us be present. And so one professor said to me, Bill, the issue isn't whether Jesus is present in the Lord's Supper, but whether we are. And of course, that could go awry, that statement as well. But are we present to the fact that Christ is present? So what do you need to do to say, you know what? Jesus is right here with me. He's come to me. What if it helps you to fast, to be present to that, do it. If it helps to have private confession with your priest, your pastor, do it. We do a brief order of confession every Sunday to help us be present to that presence. You don't come in the door and we say, here's the Lord's Supper. No, we first hear the word and we worship and we sing and we all of that leads to that. So that's all of which is done to help you be present to the fact that God is promised to be present there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so it's cool when I was thinking about them building the tabernacle, that's kind of Advent mode. They're preparing to be present. They're working on being present to God's presence there with them. All the decorations, Andrew and Gloria. Yeah.
On the topic of God's faithfulness in spite of man's inconstant nature, I want to point out Hosea that lays out this principle in shocking terms. And that is, it's about a persistently inconstant wife, and speaks to us in very practical terms of someone who is staying true in spite of somebody being consistently and appallingly unconstant themselves.
Right. There is that image in the Old Testament that God is the husband and Israel is the bride, and Israel has been unfaithful. Yeah. No.
We attended a church in Arizona where you walked in and they right away you out of this basket you picked up your little thing that had the wine and the and the.
So when you came in,
like what we had,
yeah,
during
when we were all hyper concerned about COVID and germs, that we had the little packets.
Yeah, and we walked in and we picked that up and then we went in
and you had it.
And I don't think I knew, I'm not sure that I knew when to do it, when to take it, or when it all kind of went over my head. And I was definitely not present at that time.
Right.
With, and I thought, wow, they're really missing the boat.
Well, of course you did. But how we have communion reflects what we believe about. So let's say, I'm just gonna take a guess. Because remember what I said, that we usually we don't always get what other people believe, right? But studied this a lot. So like, let's take a Presbyterian church that believes that it is a sacrament, but it's Jesus is just present there spiritually. He's not really there bodily in any or tangibly in any particular way. So a lot of times in churches like this, everybody will already have their bread and wine, and the pastor might say the words of institution, and then they all eat it together at the same time. There are a lot of churches that do that. And the reason is they're trying to emphasize that when we want to be conscious of the body, when we have the Lord's Supper, they're talking about the body, the church, not that Jesus is truly present in, with, and under the bread and wine. That's what Paul meant by that. So they take it all together at the exact same time.
Yeah.
But they also, since it's in plastic containers, and they don't think that anything is necessarily happening.
Yeah.
You know, that bread now is conveying the real presence of God. They don't believe that. So they don't take communion that way. And so, yeah, each church, however they take it, reflects what they believe about it.
Yeah, and I now when you mention that, there was a time when I guess they all did together, but I think I was so out of it.
You already took it? No. Hey, you're a Lutheran. You were given it. It's time to eat. No, that's helpful though to talk about that.
It all happened, and then I said to Gary, "Did they already do it?" And he said, "Yeah." I mean, I just was lost.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, what's striking me about the Advent thing, it just kind of came to me, the concept of personhood, God in three persons. So his personhood is like focus point.
Yeah.
It's not a group. It's not a society. It's one person. And so God himself is structuring all of this now. And later when Jesus comes, look who we've got.
Yes.
A person.
Right.
So to me, the person connection is
beautiful, beautiful. And that gets us to the next thing. Because, well, you've got your Bibles, which everybody does. You can put your finger there in Exodus and flip over to John chapter 1, the Gospel of John. Many of you know this connection to tabernacle, but I just want to anchor it by having you turn there. If you like to make little notes in your Bible. John chapter 1, verse 14. The Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 14. So go right to the beginning of the Gospel of John. So when Sharon said she thinks about a person, so what do we have happening in this tabernacle? This elaborate, creation is a place that God is going to dwell. Now, we already know, let's see, well, if we went to, yes, we went to Isaiah 6:3. Don't turn there, that's fine. Let me just read Isaiah 6 for you. I don't want to have to unshare my screen. That's why I'm not pulling it up on the Bible. Isaiah chapter 6, verse 3. So when Isaiah is called into the ministry and he's taken into the temple and he sees God, the angels, the seraphim and cherubim say, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory." Just the temple? No, the whole earth is full of his glory. By having a tabernacle, we're not saying that God doesn't inhabit the whole world, but God is localizing his presence. Because we're finite, God becomes finite. So that's what the tabernacle is. Now, somebody read verse 14.
The Lord became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth.
Okay, so now we got glory. And came to, what is the word, dwell? Right?
Yeah.
It's dwelling. What are some other translations? Live.
Tabernacled among us.
Okay. Anybody else have?
Residents.
Residents, yeah. The Message, if you had the Message Bible, it would say moved into our neighborhood.
Oh.
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers. The word is the Greek word for tabernacle. So really, if you want to make a little pencil note in your Bible, you could put tented or tabernacle. Really, just like Gloria said, what we're saying about Jesus is that the word became flesh and tabernacled among us.
Yeah, I get that from Don Jucum because he just dwelled that in.
Yeah, he really got that in. Yeah, yeah, it's really important connection to Christ. To when we read about this tabernacle and God's glory dwelling, what the New Testament claims, in Colossians it claims that Jesus is the image of God. So you're looking at Jesus, you're looking at God. So that's some pretty high statements about Christ. And, so here one makes it clear that the tabernacle does not collapse presence into immanence. Anybody want to look up immanence in your dictionary? Because it's immanent and immanence is different. Let me just put it in here so I can give you the again, if I wasn't in PowerPoint, I could just do this in logos. Immanence. Well, he's using IMMANEN. Oh, that's a movie. I don't want a movie. I don't want the movie. I want. Yes.
I have IMMINE, and it says the state.
So that IMMINENCE. Okay, and I think, what's the definition of that one?
The state or fact of being about to happen. The populace was largely unaware of the imminence of war.
Okay, so that's a different kinds of imminent than what he's using here. That's almost to happen. This kind of imminence, if you spell it this way, there's a movie that's named that way, and so Google just doesn't understand imminence meaning. Here we go. Imminence is a noun that means a state of being present and part of something, or being within a specific domain. So those two words are so, usually when I hear imminence, I think of it's about to happen, but that's that kind that you meant. This is what Fredheim is saying, a state of being present. So does not collapse presence into immanence. The God who is present as the transcendent one. So we're not saying God is only localized, in other words, in one little spot. No, God's everywhere. The God who is present is the one who's everywhere, the transcendent one. God remains transcendent in immanence and related in transcendence. Israel's God now dwells with intensity and at close range in Israel's very midst. That's the point of the temple. Now, this everywhere God is somewhere where the people can see and touch, if you will, and relate to. I love at close range with intensity. I like Fredheim's language here. God actually takes up space in Israel's world. Think about that, takes up space in Israel's world. At the same time, the God who fills the tabernacle also fills the cosmos. That's cool. And now throw on John 1:14, that what we believe is happening in the incarnation is that everywhere God is becoming somewhere and has become somewhere, so that we beheld his glory full of grace and truth. So God's glory, the the cloud, the fire, God's weight is there in the historical person of Jesus of Nazareth. That is cool because I'm a finite person and I need finite stuff. Luther will say our faith needs something to cling to. And so, although I know our dear brothers and sisters in Christ, there's many of them who reject the concept of sacraments, but this is where we are with a lot of Christendom, all of the East, Rome, although we understand it differently, Episcopalians and, others. We're a sacramental church. We believe that what's happening in baptism and the Lord's Supper is God doing just what Terence Fredheim said about the tabernacle. God remains transcendent in immanence and related in transcendence. Israel's God now dwells with intensity and at close range. So again, I know I preach a lot about the Lord's Supper, but for us, we take Jesus at his word, this is my body, and what's happening in that is that everywhere God is becoming someplace specific, tangible, with intensity, and so that you can cling to it. When you taste that wine and eat that bread, you can say, Jesus forgives my sins. I am forgiven, and he's with me, and he's in me and I in him. I am in Christ because I receive this supper in faith. It's, this is where faith is the key thing. But I just want you to see the connection between a sacramental view of baptism and the Lord's Supper and the temple here. That just like God gave the temple, now he still is giving us not only a place of worship, but now a place wherever Jesus is proclaimed and wherever we, share his meal, that he is there. It's just like setting up a temple when we do that. And we could do it out at the lake or anywhere, but it's nice to have a place where we've really invested. Okay, do you get that? Does that make sense? All right, Sharon.
Real quick, so what I'm getting out the tabernacle, all these things that people are doing is putting us a focus, like you say, if we're at the altar, we're prepared to go to communion. So we get that part of God. But at the same time, we know that the same thing is happening for everybody. So we get that transcendent connected with the personhood. And then when they go out and they go where people are worshiping Baal and all these other, gods, those gods have no transcendence.
Right.
So that's easy that would be easy to recognize. No, wait a minute, that's a false belief because you've got a person God up there,
right,
like Zeus or whoever.
Yeah, no, it's a good contrast there, and that it is cool that when we have the Lord's Supper, Christ can be present with us and
we just
everyone.
Know that when we're going up and we come up and stand together and we go together.
Yeah.
So you know that this is going on in all the worship out there too.
Well, sure, that's right. When we worship wherever we're at, we are all one in Christ.
Yeah.
And even with the church triumphant.
But
with
it's
the
there for me too.
Sure, with the church triumphant, they're with us too. Because a lot of people, again, I'm getting too Lutheran here, and although we do need to quit, a lot of other reformers criticized Luther and said, you believe in a baked God. Baked, like cookies in the oven, bread in the oven. You believe in a baked God. How ridiculous that God would become so feeble as a piece of bread. And they said that because they were emphasizing the transcendence of God. But we do both. God is transcendent, but if Jesus said it's his body, then it's his body. We can try and explain it with fancy things like transubstantiation, like the Roman Catholic Church does, or different, Lutherans use in with and under, but if it helps, if you need to get your brain around this before you can just trust what Jesus says, Maybe you can just trust what Jesus says and then forget what I'm going to say now. That's fine. But God is everywhere anyway. He's in with and under the bread. He's in with and ever everything. But we don't experience it because it's just bread. But you put his promise with that bread. Now you got something. Now now it's as if God breaks through all of that and is the God who's everywhere all the time anyway. Now I can actually take hold of because God has made that promise. And that's the way we think about the Lord's Supper and baptism and the whole body of Christ, really, for that. Andrew, we got to quit. One quick one and we'll call it.
As we discuss Jesus interchangeably with the word, we might consider what the Jews were carrying around with them physically that they got from Sinai.
Yeah, the word, the covenant. Yeah, nice. The words, yeah. Over here, yes.
So what was the bread of presence in China?
We're going to talk about that next week. No, that's it. I think all that's left for us is to talk about the lampstand, the bread of the presence a little more, and some of these things that are in there. And then we'll we got to shift gears and decide something else to do. Yeah.
I got a wonderful story.
Okay.
The last time we did the little kids' first communion.
Yeah.
I was present when Pastor Jonathan was helping us bake the bread, and we told them to taste what they had baked, and one little boy said, "No, I want to make my first communion in church." And Pastor Johnson said, "It's just bread now. It's okay. It's not on the altar, not blessed. It's just bread."
Yeah.
And so, okay.
That's cool to think about. Well, what is the difference between that bread and the bread that's going to be done on the altar? And the only difference for us is this bread has been, the word has been put together with in worship. Yeah. Okay. Hey, great study. Thank you, everybody. Hope this was helpful.
Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
I'm gonna be here.
We won't see you next week, but it sure is good. To see you. You are. Yeah, I always get nervous.
Sorry.
And why? It's say why I brought my history. I can say why. Yeah. So I can explain why. Congregation. And that's because we're Paul says, don't be concerned about. A lot of people get.
One that really, you know what a road bar and low bar. Yeah, I can.
Examine all of those.
I started. But I'm. Well. I go to bed
So Missouri has one in the state, we would make sure people rightly understand what they're doing, because otherwise they're running themselves. That's their motive. I don't agree with that. We just say, this is what you do. You're invited, Christian, Methodist, or whoever you are, to join them. So we're letting you know this is what happened. And then we invite them. So we still have some PLC churches. So they have, and they're free to take that too, but. So Missouri had a kind of exactly. Also Missouri feels like union is, you know, one is a doctrine. So the people that are not one that was this and that. I think good question. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, terrible, but anyway, then I've been able to all the way. Now, I just because all having some.
Yeah. 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 It's good for us to have those conversations.
Could really ask, what is the meaning of what is the word? The word is experience. You might say a word, is a smaller. As compared with right now to and then you know what is the important in terms of the physical meeting communicates that's actually important. It's expressing
that's all, that's the real technical.
It gives a capability. It assists us by live in the physical world, and so that's how the terms we understand. God knows.
Right. You know, I tell them, when I'm speaking about
well, because they work their butt off. And then probably they work themselves out.
It's all about
You're on, it's anybody else in terms of what is the significance of real reality, not really reality, we're jumping smooth and really so much of the so still our response to all the fear money.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really wrestle with that too.
This is the exhibition.
But we beat it up, we did.
Yeah, our response, I mean, our response to safety and actual reality is all this environment was sort of.
Well.
Please help set up for Sunday if you can. Oh, wait. Sorry. So. Yes, if you set up for Sunday. I have my foundations class, but with the, I can just do that with the tables up front. So go ahead. All right.
So all the round tables, four round tables, 3 round tables.
So then.
Nice prayers. Thank you. Appreciate it.